Welcome to Chinese history and mythology. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Chinese history and mythology. Last time, we talked about what was basically the most critical period of turmoil right before the fall of the Western Zhou. Back then, King Yu of Zhou was completely obsessed with Boxi. He drove out the queen, and the crown prince lifted Boxi up as the main consort and made her son Bofu the new heir. The old ministers left one after another in anger, and the court was soon filled only with flatterers who knew how to say nice things and nothing else. Then King Yu lit the beacons on Mount Li just to make Boxi laugh. Dozens of feudal lords rushed through the night, only to find there was no enemy at all. It was just the king playing a joke. The princes were humiliated and furious. From that moment, they stopped trusting the Zhou court. Right at this time, the queen's family, the Marquis of Shen, could not stand it anymore. He wrote a letter begging King Yu to turn back, but the king refused to listen and even demoted him. The Marquis of Shen was furious and secretly went to the Western Rong tribes to borrow troops. At first, he only wanted to force King Yu to correct his mistakes. He never imagined the Rong army would be even more brutal than anyone expected. The Western Rong forces quickly broke through Jing, the Zhou capital. King Yu lit the beacons again, calling for help, but this time, not a single feudal lord was willing to come. By the time King Yu realized how serious things were, it was far too late. He fled with Boxi and Bofu to Mount Li, but the Rong army caught up with them. King Yu was killed on the spot, and Bofu was killed as well. Boxi, because of her beauty, was taken away and abused. The loyal minister Zhang Boyi died in a rain of arrows while trying to protect them. The palaces in Jing were burned to the ground. Common people scattered in every direction. In that one night, the Western Zhou completely collapsed. Thankfully, the Marquis of Shen, together with the states of Wei, Qin, Jin, and Xin, joined forces and drove the Western Rong out of Jing. They then found the deposed crown prince Yizhu, brought him back to Jing, and put him on the throne as the new king. This was King Peng of Zhou, but by then, Jing was already in ruins, and the Rong tribes kept harassing the borders. To save his own life and preserve what was left, King Ping decided to move the capital from Jing to Luoyang. From that moment on, Luoyang became the new royal city. Last time, our story ended with King Ping leading the people east to Luoyang. At that moment, the Western Zhou officially ended and the Eastern Zhou began. After King Ping left Jing with his huge procession, they headed east along the road. The carriages slowly rolled into Luoyang. When people looked up, they saw neat, orderly streets, busy marketplaces, and crowds of people going back and forth. The palaces inside the city were large, bright, and grand. Compared to the burned-out Jing, this felt like a completely different world. When King Ping saw all this, he finally let out a long breath. He felt that, even though he had left Jing where his ancestors had lived for hundreds of years, Luoyang was actually a good place. At least, the people here looked calm and settled. He felt relieved, and even a little pleased, and he began to think that moving the capital might really have been the right decision. Once the new capital was set, the feudal lords of various states began sending envoys to offer their congratulations. They each presented memorials filled with praise and flattery and brought local specialties as gifts. Some sent fine wine, some sent beautiful cloth, some sent rare woods, and some sent fragrant spices. Everyone wanted to leave a good impression on the new son of heaven. Only one state stayed completely silent. That was the state of Jing. King Ping felt very upset about this. He called his ministers together and said, "We have moved the capital, and all the feudal lords have come to show respect. Why is it that only Jing has not come? Is it because they look down on me? Are they planning to rebel?" He even thought about sending troops to attack Jing. The ministers were shocked. They quickly tried to persuade him, saying, "Your Majesty, Jing is a rough land. Their customs have never been very refined. Since ancient times, they have not really listened to the Zhou court. Back in King Xuan's time, His Majesty personally led troops to attack them, and only then did they barely submit. Even then, King Xuan did not demand a lot of tribute from them. He only required them to send 1 cart of Jingmao grass every year, a plant used to make sacrificial wine. That rule was mostly symbolic. It just meant, do not forget that the Son of Heaven still holds authority. It was never about forcing them to pay a heavy price, the ministers continued. Now, we have only just moved the capital. The people have barely settled down. If your Majesty immediately sends an army south, and if we happen to lose, morale will suffer greatly. Even if we win, the people will be exhausted. We might as well act generous and give Jing some time. Let them come to their senses and offer tribute on their own. If they still refuse, we can wait until our military strength is solid and then punish them. It will not be too late. King Ping listened and felt they had a point. He gave up the idea of attacking Jing, at least for now. A few days later, Duke Sheng of Qing came to take his leave. He said, "Your Majesty, I must return to my state." King Ping nodded and said to him, "Your Qin is in the west. Right now, half the land around Qishan and Fenjing has been taken by the Western Rong. If you can drive the Rong out, I will grant all that land to you. That will be both a reward and a chance for Qin to become more secure and stronger. If you can hold the West for a long time, it will be a great blessing for your state." Duke Xiang of Qin immediately knelt to accept the order, then hurried back home. As soon as he returned to Qin, he began to reorganize his army and prepare for war. He trained his soldiers very strictly and made sure their weapons and armor were in top condition. In less than 3 years, the Qin army had beaten the Western Rong into complete defeat. The two great Rong generals, Bodin and Manusu, died in battle, and the Rong leader himself fled far away into the remote deserts. All the land around Qishan and Fenjin was taken back and placed under Qin's control. Qin's territory suddenly expanded by a large amount. It went from being a mid-sized state to a powerful feudal power. From that point on, Qin stepped onto the road of constant expansion. The later story, you already know. They kept fighting, kept growing stronger, and eventually became the Qin dynasty that unified all under heaven. To understand why Qin could become that strong, we have to trace its ancestors all the way back. The ancestors of Qin are extremely ancient. Their lineage goes back to the age of the legendary 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. The family first descended from Emperor Zhuangshi. Among Zhu Hongsu's descendants, there was a man named Gao Yao, who served as an official under Emperor Yao. He was in charge of justice and law and was famous as an upright and fair judge. Gao Yao had a son named Bo Yi. During the time when Yu the Great was controlling the floods, Bo Yi helped him greatly. He burned the wild trees on the mountains and drove away dangerous beasts, making it easier to manage the waters. For his service, he was granted the surname Ying. Later, under Emperor Shun, he was put in charge of animal husbandry and managed to raise healthy herds of cattle, sheep, and horses. Bo Yi had 2 sons. One was named Ruomu, and the other was named Dalian. Romu's descendants ruled as lords for many generations in the region of Shu. Among Dalian's descendants, 2 men became especially famous. One was Felian, and the other was Ally. Felian could run incredibly fast, said to be able to cover 500 li in a single day. Ally had tremendous strength and could tear a tiger's hide apart with his bare hands. Both father and son were loved by King Zhou of Shang and followed him in doing many evil deeds. When King Wu of Zhou overthrew the Shang, Felian and Ally were killed along with their master. Felian's youngest son was named Jisheng. Among Jisheng's descendants, one man stood out, Ziofu. Ziofu was a master charioteer, and his horses ran incredibly fast. King Mu of Zhou liked him so much that he granted him a fief called Zhao. This made Ziofu the ancestor of the later Zhao state. In Ziofu's family, there appeared another talented man named Fizi. Fizi lived in a place called Quangquai and was especially skilled at raising horses. King Shao of Zhou put him in charge of breeding horses in the land between the Qian River and the Wei River, which was perfect for horses. Under Fizi's care, the horses grew strong and numerous. King Shao was delighted and rewarded Fizi with a piece of land called Qin. From then on, that territory bore the name Qin, and Fizi became the first lord of the Ying-Qin line. His descendants later grew into the state of Qin. Qin passed through 6 generations of rulers and finally reached Duke Shang of Qing. Because of his great service in helping King Ping, he was promoted to the rank of Bo, making him Qingbo, and was given control over the lands around Qixing and Fengjing. After Duke Xiang died, his son Duke Wen of Qin took the throne. By then, it was already the 15th year of King Ping's reign. Not long after Duke, when inherited his title, he had a strange dream. In the dream, he found himself standing outside the town of Li. Suddenly, a huge yellow serpent fell from the sky. This serpent was enormous, with a head as big as a chariot wheel. Its head rested on the ground, while its tail reached up into the sky. Then, in an instant, the serpent turned into a little boy. The boy stood on a hillside and said to Duquan, "I am the son of the Heavenly Emperor. The Heavenly Emperor orders you to become the White Emperor and put you in charge of the sacrifices for the West." As soon as the boy finished speaking, he vanished. The next day, Duquan of Qin summoned the Grand Scribe Dun and asked him to interpret the dream. The Grand Scribe said, "White is the color of the West. Heaven is ordering your lordship to rule the Western region. If you follow what the dream suggests and perform the proper sacrifices, you will receive blessings." So Duquan built a tall altar in a place called Fu, and there he constructed a temple for worshipping the White Emperor. It was called the Fu Shrine. From then on, every year he sacrificed white cattle there. Not long after, another strange thing happened. There was a man from Chenkang who went out hunting and caught a very odd wild animal. It looked like a pig, but its whole body was covered with sharp spines. No matter how he struck it, it would not die, and no one could name it. The hunter decided to lead it back and present it to Duquan of Qin. On the road, the hunter met two children. The two children pointed at the animal and said, "This creature is called a Wei. It likes to hide underground and eats the brains of dead people. If you want to kill it, just knock it on the head." What shocked the hunter even more was that the animal itself suddenly spoke. The Wei said, "These two children are not ordinary. They are two pheasants who have taken human form. Their shared name is Chenbao. If you catch the male pheasant, you can become a king. If you catch the female, you can become a hegemon." The two children's true identities were exposed. Frightened, they instantly turned back into pheasants and flew away. The male pheasant flew off and disappeared. The female pheasant landed on the north slope of Chenkang Mountain and turned into a stone, which people later called stone pheasant. When the hunter turned to look again, the strange animal, the Wei, had also vanished. The more the hunter thought about it, the more terrified he became. He rushed to report everything to Duquan of Qin. To calm the people and mark the event, Duquan built a shrine called the Chenbo Shrine on Chenkang Mountain as a way to record and contain this strange incident. Another strange event took place on Mount Zhongnan. On Mount Zhongnan, there was a huge catalpa tree. Duquan liked this tree and wanted to cut it down to use its wood as beams for his palace. He sent people to chop it, but no matter how they swung their axes or sawed at the trunk, they could not make a dent. Then a sudden wind and heavy rain frightened the workers into stopping. That night, a man resting at the foot of the mountain heard many ghostly voices gathering in front of the big catalpa tree. It sounded as if they were holding a celebration for the tree. The tree itself spoke back to them like a person. One of the ghosts said, "If the people of Qin untie their hair and wrap you with red silk, what will you do?" The great catalpa fell silent at once and did not answer again. The next day, that man told everyone around him what he had heard. Early the next morning, Duquan of Qin summoned the Grand Scribe Dun to the palace. Dun was the man in charge of divination. His job was to interpret omens and dreams. After hearing the Duke describe his dream, he said, "My lord, white is the color that represents the West. In your dream, you saw the White Emperor, who is a spirit of heaven in the West. Heaven is telling you to take charge of the Western region. If you build a shrine and sacrifice white cattle there, you will receive heaven's protection and good fortune." Duquan took this very seriously. He decided on the spot to build a temple. In a place called Fu, he ordered the earth piled up into a high platform and had carpenters and masons build a temple for the White Emperor. He named it the Fu Shrine. Every year after that, he went there to sacrifice white cattle to honor the will of heaven. Right around this time, something strange happened in Chenkang. There was a hunter who lived there and made his living by hunting. One day while he was out, he caught a creature he had never seen before. It looked a bit like a pig, but its whole body was covered in hard, sharp spines. No matter how he beat it with a stick, he could not injure it. and his spear could not pierce it either. He had no idea what it was. The more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed, so he decided to bring it to Duke Wen and show it to him. On the way, he ran into 2 children. When these 2 boys saw the creature, they said, "This animal is called a wei. It normally hides underground and eats the brains of the dead. If you want to kill it, all you need to do is strike it on the head." The hunter was not sure whether to believe them or not. Right then, the monster suddenly spoke. Its voice was clear and human. It said, "You two are not human, children. You are pheasants that have taken shape. Your shared name is Chenbo. If someone catches the male bird, he can become a king. If someone catches the female bird, he can become a powerful hegemon." The 2 boys were terrified. They immediately changed back into pheasants and flew away. The male pheasant flew straight up into the sky and disappeared. The female flew north to the slope of Chenkong Mountain, landed there, and turned into a stone shaped like a chicken. People later called it stone pheasant. When the hunter turned back again, the talking monster had vanished as well. He was both frightened and amazed, and hurried to report everything to Duke Wen. Duke Wen was shocked too, but he was more worried that such strange events might frighten the people. To calm them, he had a shrine built on Chenkeng Mountain, called the Chenbao Shrine, and told everyone that this was a sign from the spirits so they would not be afraid. But the strange events were not over yet. One day, news came from Mount Zhongnan that there was a huge catalpa tree growing there. Its trunk was so thick that several men holding hands could not encircle it. Duke Wen liked the tree and wanted to cut it down to use as beams for his palace. He sent carpenters to chop it. Something odd happened. When the carpenters swung their axes, the blades could not bite into the wood. When they used saws, the teeth could not cut through. The tree was as hard as iron. Just when they were struggling with it, a sudden wind rose and heavy rain poured down. They had no choice but to stop and go back. That night, a traveler who happened to be resting at the foot of the mountain lay down to sleep near the big tree. In the middle of the night, he woke up and heard many ghostly voices gathered around the katapa, as if they were holding a celebration. To his shock, the great tree was also speaking back in a human voice. One of the ghosts said to the catalpa, "If the people of Qin untie their hair and wrap you up in red silk, what will you do?" As soon as the tree heard this, it fell silent. It did not answer again. The next day, the traveler went straight to Duke Wen and told him everything he had heard. Duke Wen listened and immediately decided to act according to the hint. He ordered the carpenters to let their hair hang loose and then wrap the trunk of the katapa in red silk. After that, they tried to saw the tree again. This time, it went very smoothly. The huge tree trunk was cut through at once and toppled over. As the tree fell, people saw a blue-colored ox walk out from inside the trunk. The ox had bright horns on its head, and its skin was a shining blue-green. It looked extremely strong. It walked step by step down toward the riverbank and then jumped into the Young River. From then on, people living near the river would sometimes see this blue ox lifting its head out of the water. Whenever it appeared, it scared people so badly that no one dared to get close. Duke Wen was afraid it would harm people. He stationed soldiers by the river to catch it. But the blue ox was incredibly strong. With one charge, it flung several soldiers into the air. They crashed to the ground, their hair all loose and hanging over their faces. Strangely, when the ox saw the soldiers with their hair down, it was frightened. From that moment, it no longer dared to surface. Duke Wen realized the ox feared loose hair. He had craftsmen make many fake human heads and glued artificial hair to their foreheads so they looked like people with their hair hanging down. He had these fake heads placed around the camp to protect the soldiers and drive away the spirit. At the same time, he built a small shrine called the Newt Shrine to honor the tree spirit. Only then did things finally settle down. While Qin was busy dealing with omens and spirits, trouble was brewing in the state of Lu. The ruler of Lu, Duke Hui of Lu, heard that Qin dared to use a ritual that should belong only to the Son of Heaven, offering sacrifices to heaven in the open fields outside the city. Duke Hui felt this was unfair. He sent officials to Luoyang to ask King Ping of Zhou for permission to perform the same kind of suburban sacrifice. King Ping firmly refused. In Zhou ritual, Heaven is the highest deity, and only the Son of Heaven may sacrifice to heaven in this way. Lu was just a feudal state and did not have that kind of rank. When Duke Hui heard the refusal, he was furious. He said, "My ancestor, Duke Zhou, did so much for the Zhou dynasty when it was founded. Almost all the rites and music of Zhou were created with his help. As his descendant, why am I not allowed to use these rituals? Besides, the Son of Heaven does not dare stop Qin, so why does he come to stop us in Lu?" So, Duke Hui ignored the king's decision. He went out to the suburbs and held a grand sacrifice to heaven on his own. The ceremony was huge and magnificent, almost the same as the rite of the Son of Heaven. When King Ping heard about it, he felt helpless and did not dare punish him. From that point on, the authority of the Zhou royal house grew weaker and weaker. Other feudal lords followed the example of Lu and began to hold their own great ceremonies. One after another, they stopped taking the Son of Heaven seriously, and the realm slowly slipped into disorder. Later, the court historians wrote poems to sigh over this. They said, "From ancient times, the rights of the Son of Heaven and the rights of the feudal lords were separated by a great distance. Never has it been heard that a feudal lord could sacrifice to heaven in the suburbs. Once Qin and Lu began to covet these rights, all the other lords would soon follow, and the whole country would lose control." That is exactly what happened. Now let us turn our eyes away from Lu and back to Jing. While the Zhou court was in chaos, the state of Jing was quietly growing strong. After the crown prince Zhou, Tu of Jing, took the throne as Duke Wu of Jing, he used the disorder of the realm to expand. He swallowed up the small states of East Guo and other neighboring petty states. He renamed the newly conquered area Xinjiang, made Yingyang his own capital, and set up a guarded checkpoint in a place called Zi to protect his borders and collect taxes. Duke Wu's power grew larger and larger. He became as important as Duke Wu of Wei and was appointed Qing Shi, one of the highest-ranking ministers in the Zhou court. In the 13th year of King Ping's reign, Duke Wu of Wei died. Duke Wu of Zheng then began to take charge of court affairs on his own. By day, he worked in Luoyang, handling Zhou royal business. By night, he returned to Yangyang to deal with the affairs of his own state. He went back and forth like this and was busy all the time. Duke Wu's wife was a lady of the Jiang clan, the same family as the Marquis of Shen. She had 2 sons. The elder son was named Wu Sheng. The younger was named Duan. Why was the elder son called Wu Sheng, which means born while awake? Because when Lady Jiang gave birth, it was a difficult delivery. Wu Sheng came out feet first, which frightened her terribly. She never really got over it. From that moment, she felt a dislike for this son deep in her heart. The younger son, Duan, grew up very handsome. His skin was pale, as if he had powder on his face, and his lips were bright red, as if they had been painted. He was strong, skilled in archery, and good at martial arts. Lady Jiang was completely biased. She gave all her love to Duan. In her eyes, he was 10 times better than Wu Sheng. If Duan could inherit the throne, she would sleep well at night. She kept praising Duan's talents in front of Duke Wu, saying he was both smart and brave and should be made heir. Duke Wu shook his head and said, "Between brothers, there must be order. Wu Sheng is the elder son, and he has done nothing wrong. I cannot depose the elder and raise the younger." So Wu Sheng was made crown prince after all, and Duan only received a small fief called Guancheng. People started calling him Uncle of Gong. When Duke Wu died, Wu Sheng inherited the throne as Duke Xuan of Jing. Duke Xuan had one big weakness. He listened to his mother too much. When Lady Jiang saw that her younger son Duan had not received any great fief, her heart stayed unbalanced. She went to Duke Xuan and said, "You have inherited the throne and rule over a land 1,000 li wide, but your own younger brother can only live in a tiny place. Can you really bear to let him live like this?" Duke Xuan said, "Mother, I will follow whatever you think is best." Lady Jiang said, "Give him the city of Zi." Duke Zhuang replied, "Zi is the key place of our state. Father warned me again and again that it must not be granted to anyone. But aside from Zi, whatever place you want to give him, I will agree." Lady Jiang said, "Then grant him the city of Jing." Duke Zhuang remained silent. Lady Jiang's face darkened at once. She said, "If you will not agree, then drive him out of the state and let him go beg for a living in another country." Duke Zhuang quickly said, "I would not dare. I will follow your wish. The next day, at court, in front of all the ministers, he summoned Duan and announced that he would be in theft with Jing. The high official Zhou stepped out immediately to oppose this. He said, "My lord, you must not do this. Jing is a great city. It is as important as the capital itself. If you grant Jing to Uncle Duan, it is the same as making him a second ruler. This will surely lead to disaster later." Duke Xuan said, "This is my mother's command. I cannot disobey her." So, Jing was given to Duan. When Duan went to bid farewell to his mother, Lady Jiang drove the maids away and spoke to him in private. She said, "Your brother does not understand brotherly love. When you reach Dijing, you must quickly gather troops, win over officers, and secretly make preparations. When the time is right, I will send you a message. Then you will bring your soldiers back to attack. I will help you from inside the palace. If you can become ruler, I can die without regret." Duan was delighted. Once he reached Jing, people began calling him the uncle of Jing. When his office was set up, 2 local officials came to pay their respects. Duan looked at them and said, "The lands of both your districts are now part of my fief. From today, the taxes from your fields will be handed over to me, and your troops will march at my command." The 2 officials had already heard that the uncle enjoyed the favor of the dowager and hoped he might one day inherit the state. Seeing that he carried himself like a ruler, they had no choice but to agree. Uncle Duan drilled his troops every day outside the city, calling it hunting, but in fact, he was preparing for rebellion. He even seized the areas of Yan and Linyan by force. The officials in those places fled back to Zhang and reported all of Duan's actions in detail to Duke Xuan. Duke Xuan only smiled and took no steps to punish him. The person most worried about the fate of the state was the chief minister Gongziel. When he heard that Duan had taken new lands and was commanding troops, he hurried to Duke Xuan and said, "My lord, you must send men to seize him at once." Duke Xuan said, "He is my younger brother. He has not committed some obvious great crime. I cannot do that." Gongziel said, "My lord, Duan is cutting off pieces of our territory one by one. This is like slicing away the flesh of the state." Duke Xuan said, "He is the beloved son of my mother. I would rather lose some land than destroy brotherly ties and cause mother pain." Gongziel said, "I do not fear losing land. I fear that you will one day lose the entire state." Duke Xuan fell silent. That night, Gongziel had another private audience with the duke and said, "My lord, the dowager clearly favors Uncle Duan, and he holds Jing, a strong city with many soldiers. He will certainly rebel. If you do nothing now, you are simply giving him the chance to do so. Once he rises in arms, we will be on the back foot." Duke Xuan said, "Of course I know Duan has ambitions, but I cannot move against him yet. If I seize him now, everyone will say I harmed my own brother and disobeyed my mother. If he makes the first move, then his guilt will be clear. At that time, the people will stand with me, and even the dowager will have nothing to say." Gongziel was convinced and asked, "Then how does my lord plan to force him to move first?" Duke Zhuang said, "You can help me think of a way." Gongziel answered at once, "My lord can pretend to go to Luoyang to attend court with the Zhou king. Uncle Duan will think the state is empty and will surely march on Jing. I will set an ambush outside Jing. When he moves out, I will take Jing, and you can turn back with your army from another route. Duan will be attacked from front and back. Then, even if he had wings, he could not escape." Duke Zhuang smiled and said, "We will do it this way, but no one must know of it." When Gongziel came out, he said to Zhu, "Our lord truly has a plan." "You were right about him." Duke Xuan of Zun and his chief minister Gongziel had already quietly agreed on how to deal with Uncle Duan. Xuan decided to play dumb, wait until his younger brother really raised troops in open rebellion, and then solve everything in one stroke. That way, he could save the state and, at the same time, shut his mother Jiang's mouth with hard evidence. The next morning at court, Duke Zhuwang put on his formal robes, went up to the main hall, and announced a decree in front of all the ministers. He said he planned to go to Luoyang in person to help the Zhou king handle state business and pay his respects at the same time. Before leaving, he handed full authority over internal affairs to the minister Zhou, asking him to stay in the capital, keep watch over the state, and deal with daily government matters. On the surface, all the ministers bowed and accepted this order with respect. In their hearts, they understood that this was mostly for show. The real plan was something only Duke Zhuang and Gong Ziel knew. When Lady Jiang in the palace heard that Zhuang was going to leave Zhang and head for Luoyang, she was overjoyed. She walked back and forth in the hall, smiling so widely she could hardly close her mouth. She said to her attendants, "My youngest son really has the fate of a ruler. Once he grows a little stronger, why would it still be Wu Shang's turn to decide anything?" The more she thought about it, the more she felt that this was the perfect chance. That very night, she shut the palace doors, ground her own ink, and wrote a secret letter. In the letter, she made everything very clear. She set the time with Uncle Duan for the first 10 days of the 5th lunar month. During those early days of the 5th month, he was to send troops to attack Zhang. She would be his inside helper on the city tower of the capital and would personally open the gates for him. Jiang finished the letter, folded it, sealed it, and gave it to the palace maid she trusted the most. She told her to slip out of the capital quietly, hurry all the way to Jing, and deliver the letter to Uncle Duan's own hands. It was already the last part of the 4th month. There were only about 10 days left, so time was very tight. She did not know that the letter had barely left the capital before it fell into a net that Gong Ziel had already prepared. Gong Ziel had predicted long before that the dowager would secretly send a message to Uncle Duane. He had placed men in advance along the main roads going toward Jing. These men pretended to be ordinary travelers and watched everyone passing by with sharp eyes. The palace maid was in a hurry, her face tense, and she even tried to avoid checkpoints on purpose. That only made her look more suspicious. Gong Ziela's men stopped her, questioned her a little, and quickly realized she served the dowager. When they searched her clothes, they found the sealed letter. They killed her on the spot so that no word could leak out, then carefully brought the letter to Duke Zhuang. Zhuang opened it, read it line by line, and understood everything at once. The text clearly ordered Duan to raise troops in the first 10 days of the 5th lunar month and march on Zhen. Lady Jiang said she would hang a white flag on the city tower as a signal so that Uncle Duan would know where to coordinate with her. After Zhuang read the letter, he gave a cold laugh and said, "This letter is written proof that Duan and Mother are plotting rebellion together. When the time comes and I show it to the dowager, she will have nothing to say." He sealed the letter again and chose another reliable man to carry it on, as if nothing had happened, and deliver it all the way to Jing. In Jing, Uncle Duan received the letter a few days later. He opened it, saw that his mother had agreed to be his inside helper, and told him to raise troops around the 5th day of the 5th lunar month, and he was thrilled. He immediately picked up his brush and wrote back, fixing the exact date of the attack as the 5th day of the 5th lunar month. He told his mother to hang a white flag on the city tower on that day as the signal for their joint action. This reply was also carried back to Jing and handed straight to Duke Zhuang. When he opened it and saw Uncle Duan's own words agreeing to rise in rebellion, he felt even more at ease. He said to the men beside him, "Good, now we have Duan's own written promise to rebel. This is his confession. Once it all happens, even if the dowager wants to defend him, she will not be able to." After this was done, Yuan went into the palace to see Lady Jiang. He pretended to know nothing, knelt to bow, and said that he was going to leave Zhang soon to serve the Zhou king in Luoyang, so he had come to say farewell. Lady Jiang pressed down her joy, told him to take care on the road, and spoke the words of a concerned mother. In her heart, she was thinking only about fighting in early May and the younger son taking the throne. After Duke Zhuang walked out of the palace gates, he did not take the main road toward Luoyang. Once he passed out of the capital, he turned aside and took another road leading toward Linyan. He walked slowly on purpose, using time as a cover and giving Gong Ziel plenty of room to set up his ambush. At the same time, Gong Ziel had already led 200 war chariots and slipped out along another route to lie in wait near Jing. The chariots were hidden behind hills and trees. The soldiers spoke in low voices. Even the horses' hooves were muffled. They were waiting for Uncle Duan to march out. Now, let us turn to Jing. After Uncle Duan received his mother's letter and sent back his reply fixing the date, He knew that time was short. He started moving at once. First, he called in his son Gongsun. The two of them shut the door, sat down, and talked in private. Uncle Duan said to his son, "The Lord has already left the country for Luyong, and the capital is empty. This is a great chance. I plan to lead troops and attack Zhang, but the forces in Jing alone are not enough. You must go to the state of Wei at once and borrow troops from the Marquis of Wei. Be sure to explain everything clearly. Tell him your father has suffered injustice and must seek justice." Gongsun agreed, left the city that night, and set out toward Wei. Uncle Duan, on his side, did not rest. He summoned all his officers and gathered together the troops of Jing, plus the forces in the western and northern districts he had already taken over. He concentrated them all under his command. Then he put out a public statement. "I am acting on the orders of Duke Xuan, returning to the capital to supervise government affairs." Using this claim of returning by command, he arranged his troops in formation, slaughtered cattle, and offered them to the flags, performing a ceremony as if he were serving the state. Then he set out with full confidence and high spirits. What he did not know was that Gongziel had already sent people ahead, dressed as peddlers and small traders, to slip into Jing in groups. Some pushed carts selling cloth. Some carried baskets of vegetables. Some sold pots and bowls. To anyone watching, they looked like ordinary townspeople, but their eyes were fixed on the city gates and the movements of the troops. As soon as Uncle Duan left Dijing with his army and marched out through the city gate towards Zhang, these fake merchants moved at once. They ran up the tower, lit fires, and sent up thick smoke as a signal. Alarms rang at the gate. Before the gate guards had time to react, they were overwhelmed and disarmed. The city gates were thrown open. From outside the walls, Gongziel saw the smoke rise over the gate tower and knew the moment had come. Without hesitation, he shouted, "Advance! Take the city!" The 200 chariots rushed forward in a cloud of dust. The soldiers guarding the city were already uneasy in their hearts. They had been loyal to Uncle Duan and knew they were on dangerous ground. When they saw such a powerful army charging in, almost none of them were willing to fight to the death. Gongziel's men encountered little real resistance. Jing fell into their hands very quickly. After entering the city, the first thing Gongziel did was not to kill, but to calm the people. He immediately posted a public notice on the walls, explaining the whole story to the townspeople in detail. The notice clearly laid out two sides. On one side, how Duke Xuan had for years shown filial piety to his mother and patience toward his younger brother, how he granted Duan fiefs and chances and never struck first. On the other side, how Uncle Duan had relied on the dowager's favor to seize land, expand his troops, and join with outside lords in a plot to rebel. The people of Dijing read the notice and thought back on what they had seen with their own eyes over the years. Their view of Duan changed completely. Some said, "So the Duke has been putting up with him all this time." Others said, "We followed Uncle Duan into this trouble. That is going against heaven." The mood in the city turned sharply against Duan. Now go back to Uncle Duan himself. He had marched out from Jing toward Jing and had not gone very far when scouts galloped up and reported, "Uncle, this is bad. Jing has been seized by Gongziel's men." Duan froze where he stood. He had thought he would have a perfect inside and outside coordination. He never imagined that he would be the one outplayed. His heart shook. The momentum he had built up suddenly vanished. He knew he could not keep marching forward. He had no choice but to turn back at once. That same night, he ordered a retreat and led his army back toward Jing. He camped outside the city, planning to attack and retake it first. But by then, his camp was already falling apart. The soldiers were standing around in small groups, murmuring to each other. The families inside the city had sent messages out to them. Those letters said that notices had been posted in Dijing that explained everything between Yuan and Duan over the last few years. At first, some soldiers doubted the letters, but more and more letters came, and they all told the same story. Gradually, the soldiers began to think, it looks like Uncle Duan was the one in the wrong from the beginning. In the camp, men were saying, "We have turned our backs on the rightful heir, Duke Xuan, and followed Uncle Duan into rebellion. That is going against heaven's way." The more they talked, the more guilty and uneasy they felt. At first, only a few thought of slipping away. Soon the unease became open unrest. Squads and units started disappearing. When Uncle Duan ordered a head count, he found that more than half his men had already run away. He understood that the army's morale had collapsed and he could no longer hold his troops. Night was falling. He gritted his teeth and said to his close attendants, "This battle cannot be fought. We can only retreat." He gathered up his remaining soldiers and headed toward the area of Yan. He thought, "Yan and Gongcheng were my old fiefs. I know the land and the people there. At least I can hold on for a while." He paused briefly in Yan, then continued toward Gongcheng. He did not know that Duke Zhuang had no intention of giving him any time at all. Zhuang had never gone to Luoyang. He had been marching through Linyan and Yan all along. He advanced step by step, calmly and carefully, placing troops in the routes Uncle Duan would have to take. He was waiting for exactly this moment. Duan reached Gongcheng in the end, closed the gates, and prepared to defend. He wanted to rely on the small city walls and hold out as long as he could. Zhuang arrived with his army and surrounded the city from outside. Gongcheng was a small place, with low walls, a narrow area, and limited troops. Facing a large army, pressing from two directions, it was like an egg trying to resist to mountains. Soon, the walls were breached. Zen soldiers poured into the streets from all sides. Inside the city, men and shouts mixed together. There was no way to stop the rush. Uncle Duan stood in his room, listening to the battle cries getting closer and closer. He knew that everything was over. He let out a long sigh and said, "Mother, Mother, you loved me, but your love has harmed me. Now that it has come to this, how can I ever face my elder brother again?" After saying this, he drew his sword and killed himself inside the room. Later, writers composed poems about his life. Their meaning was roughly this. The younger brother had talent, a great fief, his mother's support, and what looked like perfect chances. But in the end, he could not escape the general judgment that those who rise in rebellion will not have a good end. He was born in Jing and died in Gongcheng, and his story became a warning. Duke Zhuang entered Gongcheng with his troops and saw that Uncle Duan had already taken his own life. His feelings were complicated and heavy. He walked forward, lifted the white cloth with his own hands, looked at his brother's body, and could not help crying as he said, "My foolish brother, why could you not think things through? If you had stopped earlier, why would it ever have come to this?" When he had finished weeping, he ordered the soldiers to search Duan's belongings and baggage carefully. They turned everything over, and sure enough, they found something important. Hidden among the clothes were the very letters they were looking for. The one Jiang had written to Duan, and the one he had written back to her. Zhuang took out the two letters and handed them to his attendants. He said, "Send these two letters back to the capital at once. Give them to Zhu and ask him to present them to the dowager." At the same time, he issued another order. He told his men to escort Lady Jiang out of the capital and move her to the city of Ying for rest and retirement. Before she left, he swore a heavy oath with his own mouth. "From this day on, if I remain alive, I will not see Lady Jiang again. Only when we meet in the Yellow Springs beneath the earth will we see each other." This became the famous Oath of the Yellow Springs. The letters soon reached the capital. Zhu presented them to Jiang. She opened them and saw her own handwriting, her own brushstrokes. One was the letter she had written to Duan, the other was his reply to her. She thought about how her unfair love and selfish heart had led her younger son to his death and had also broken her bond with her elder son. Shame and regret filled her. She could not even lift her head. She understood that with Zhuang's reputation now, if she stayed in the capital, people would only whisper and point at her behind her back. So she did not argue. She quietly packed her things and left the palace to live in Ying. When Duke Zhuang returned to the capital after the campaign and walked into the palace, there was no trace of his mother. The anger and grief he had been holding down could no longer stay buried. Standing in front of the hall, he let out a long sigh and said to those beside him, "I have personally driven my younger brother to his death and sent my mother away to Ying. All of this was forced by the situation. But in the end, I am still a man who has committed a great offense against filial piety." The story spread quickly among the common people. Some said Zhuang was cruel. Others said his position had been extremely difficult. Just then, in Ying, there lived a minor official named Ying Kyoshu. He was a young man with a very good reputation. Ying Kyoshu was known locally as honest and fair. He did not take bribes or grab what was not his. His family was not wealthy, but he was very devoted to his parents and loyal to his friends. Everyone respected him. When he heard that Zhuang had driven his mother to live in Ying, he felt troubled. He said to the people around him, "The mother indeed made serious mistakes, but as a son, he should not be completely unforgiving. What our Lord has done goes too far in terms of ritual and duty." He also knew that it was not wise to criticize his ruler directly, so he thought, "I had better find a pretext to meet him first." Ying Kyoshu knew that Yuang liked meat and often rewarded officials who showed filial piety, so he went out, hunted several wild birds, cleaned and cooked them into a dish, and prepared to offer them to the duke. One day, Duke Zhuang was traveling on inspection and passed near Ying. Ying Kyoshu carried a basket of meat, came forward, and bowed. He said, "My lord, I hunted several wild birds and have brought them as an offering for you. Please taste them." Xuan looked into the basket and casually asked, "What kind of bird is this?" Ying Kyoshu replied, "This is an owl. At night it sees everything clearly, but in the daytime it cannot see at all. When it is young, its mother works very hard to feed it, but when it grows up, it bites its own mother to death and eats her flesh. Because of this, people say it is an unfilial bird. Today I offer this bird to you to remind myself and also to remind you that a person should not be like an owl." When Yuang heard this, it felt as if something had stabbed him in the heart. He fell silent and did not answer. Just then, the kitchen sent over a freshly steamed whole sheep. Zhuang was moved and said offhand, "Cut off a large piece from the front leg and rewards Ying Kyoshu with it." The attendants obeyed and placed a big chunk of mutton in front of Ying Kyoshu. To everyone's surprise, he did not sit down and eat it at once. Instead, he slowly chose the softest, finest piece, wrapped it in cloth, and tucked it into his sleeve. Zhuang noticed and was puzzled. He asked, "Why are you not eating it here? What are you planning to do with that piece you hid away?" Ying Kyoshu answered naturally, "I still have an old mother at home. We are poor and hardly ever taste meat, let alone such good mutton. Today you have rewarded me with so much. If I sit here and eat alone and leave my mother at home with nothing, my heart will not feel right. So I want to take a small piece back, cook it into soft meat broth, and let my mother taste a little too." After hearing this, Guang was deeply moved. He said, "You are truly a filial son." As he said these words, he lowered his head and sighed. Ying Kyoshu saw this and pretended not to understand. He asked, "Why does my lord sigh? Is it because there is too much government work and it is weighing on you?" Zhuang said slowly, "You still have your mother and can show your filial piety to her in person. You can carry meat home and feed her yourself. But the first, although I am the ruler, am the same as someone without a mother. Do you not think that in this respect, I am actually worse off than you?" Ying Kyoshu asked directly on purpose, "Is your mother not living safely in Ying? She is not sick and has not suffered any disaster. Why do you say you have no mother?" Zhuang then told him everything, from beginning to end. He talked about Lady Jiang's favoritism toward Uncle Duan, how she wrote secret letters to help him rebel, how Duan raised troops and died in Gongzheng, how he himself had sworn the oath of the Yellow Springs and sent his mother to Ying. In the end, he sighed and said, "I have already sworn. I said that I would not see her again until we met in the Yellow Springs below. Even if I want to regret it now, it is too late." Ying Kyoshu thought for a moment and then said slowly, "My lord, the situation is not completely hopeless. Uncle Duan is dead. Lady Jiang has only you left as her son. If you ignore her completely, imagine how she must feel. Think also how others will speak about you. Even if she was in the wrong at the beginning, the one who should take the step to correct the mistake and repair the bond is you." He paused on purpose, then continued, "You said your oath was, we will not meet until the Yellow Springs. Then let us work with that oath. The Yellow Springs mean an underground place where water flows. You can order men to dig down at some place until water comes out of the ground and build a small chamber there. First, bring Lady Jiang to that underground room. When she is there, you can climb down from above. Mother and son will meet beneath the earth. That will be a proper meeting in the Yellow Springs. You will not have broken your oath, and you will have repaired the love between mother and son. This is the best of both sides. Zhuang's eyes lit up at once. He said, "This plan is good." This plan is truly good. The more he thought about it, the more sense it made. He agreed on the spot. He ordered Yin Koashu to take 500 strong men to dig at the foot of Niupi Mountain near Kwai. They dug for many days, going down and down until they reached several tens of meters below the surface. At last they saw spring water bubbling up from the ground and stopped. By the side of the spring they built a small underground chamber using thick beams and sturdy pillars. At the surface, they left an opening and placed a long wooden ladder so people could go up and down. This was to be the place for that meeting in the Yellow Springs. After it was ready, Yin Qiushu went himself to Ying to see Lady Jiang. He explained in detail how much Zhuang regretted what had happened and how miserable he had felt. He told her that Zhuang had prepared an underground chamber and wanted to see her there in the way of meeting in the Yellow Springs. When Jiang heard this, she felt both grief and comfort. She mourned her younger son who had died in Gongcheng. At the same time, she was moved that her elder son wished to make amends. She cried for a while, then nodded and agreed to see him. A few days later, Yin Qiushu escorted her all the way to the underground chamber at the foot of Niupi Mountain. Jiang stepped slowly down the ladder and went into the small room under the ground. She sat quietly there and waited. Soon after, Duke Zhuang arrived by carriage. He looked at the opening in the earth at the foot of the mountain and felt both nervous and excited. He stepped down from the carriage, took a deep breath, and went down the ladder step by step. When he entered the underground room and saw his mother, whom he had not seen for years, he fell to his knees with a thud, bowed his head again and again, and said, "Wu Sheng has been unfilial and has caused you much suffering. It was my fault that I did not visit you all these years. Please forgive me." As soon as Zhang heard this, her tears flowed again. She hurried to help him up and said, "It was all my fault, not yours. If I had not favored your younger brother back then, there would have been no later trouble. The fact that you are willing to come and see me is already my good fortune." Mother and son held each other and cried in the underground room. When they finished crying, the knot in their hearts finally loosened. Then Zhuang supported his mother, and they climbed slowly up the ladder together. At the surface, he helped her into the carriage with his own hands and rode with her back toward the capital. The people of the capital saw Yuang holding Lady Jiang, and the two of them riding in the same carriage back into the city. They lined the road on both sides and raised their hands to their foreheads in a respectful salute. Some whispered, "Duke Xuan of Zheng is, after all, a man who understands filial duty." All of this had been made possible by Yin Koshu and the piece of meat saved for his mother. Later, people wrote poems saying that without Yin Koshu's filial heart, there would have been no famous story of meeting in the Yellow Springs. To thank him, Zhuang gave Yin Kaioshu the title of Grand Officer and made him share command of the army and state affairs, together with Gongsun Yang. As for Uncle Duan's son, Gongsun Hua, he had gone to Wei to borrow troops and had not yet reached the border of Zhen when he heard that his father had died in Gongcheng. Gongsun Hua was crushed with grief and full of anger and hatred. He had no choice but to take his troops back to Wei and pour out his sorrow before Duke Xuan of Wei. He said that his uncle had killed his own brother and driven his mother out of the country, and that such a man could not be called a ruler who valued family bonds. When Duke Xuan of Wei heard this, his heart was stirred. He said, "Duke Xing is unjust. I should stand up for you and lead troops to punish him." So Duke Xuan of Wei began to organize his army and prepare to march against Zhang. Who would win that war and who would lose? We will leave that for next time. Chinese culture mini lesson. Did ancient Chinese people brush their teeth? Today, let's talk about a question a lot of people are secretly curious about. Did people in ancient China brush their teeth? Did their breath smell terrible? How did they keep their mouths clean enough to talk face to face every day without knocking each other out? Actually, you really don't need to worry that much. People in ancient China not only cleaned their teeth, they were surprisingly serious about two things: being clean and looking good. From the Zhou dynasty to the Han, all the way through Tang, Song, Ming, and Qing, Chinese culture treated neat, good-looking teeth as part of a person's basic image. If your mouth wasn't clean, you really did not belong in polite society. Let's start from the very beginning. Long, long ago, before toothbrushes even existed, people in China were already trying to keep their teeth clean. They didn't brush in the way we do now. They rinsed. Early in the morning, as soon as the sun came up and the rooster crowed, people got out of bed. Their first task was not breakfast. It was rinsing their mouth. This is clearly written in the ancient text, the Book of Rites. You can picture the scene: dawn light just breaking, the household's not yet busy. There is dew in the yard and the air is cool. The men roll up their sleeves and walk to the big water tank. They scoop up a handful of water, hold it in their mouth, swish it around, and spit it out. That was how the oral hygiene of the day began. And they did not just use plain water. People in ancient China loved creative mouthwashes. The most common one was salt water. Very simple, but actually very useful. It kills some germs, reduces inflammation, and helps with bleeding gums. Salt was something every household had. It was a kitchen basic. Rinse with salt water, rub your teeth a bit with it, and you got something that was both convenient and cheap. Besides salt, ancient Chinese people used tea, wine, and even alum water to rinse their mouth. Can you imagine a big old guy in the morning, holding a bowl of alum water, rinsing his mouth? It sounds funny, but according to old records, alum water really was used to prevent bad breath. So it had its function. By the Tang dynasty, people had started to use a method that looked much more like modern toothbrushing. It was not called brushing teeth back then. It was called the tooth rubbing method, or da qi fa. So what was this tooth rubbing method? They would take a small twig, usually from a willow tree, put it in their mouth and gently chew the end. After a few bites, the fibers at the tip would split open into something like a tiny, natural brush. Then they would dip this little brush into a powder made from fragrant herbs and medicine and rub it back and forth along their teeth. That feeling is actually quite close to using a toothbrush with toothpaste today. You can imagine this. A Tang Dynasty scholar gets up in the morning, washes his face, then picks up a fresh green willow twig. He bites the end twice, carefully chews it into a soft brush head, dips it in scented powder, and slowly rubs it over his teeth. Beside him, there is a basin of clear water. After rubbing for a while, he spits and rinses again. His movements are unhurried and elegant. If you freeze that moment, it is actually a very beautiful, very alive, daily life painting. Because of the spread of Buddhism, monks in temples took clean breath very seriously. For them, keeping the mouth pure was part of spiritual practice. They taught disciples how to choose the right twig, how to chew it open, how to rub. It was thanks to Buddhism that this method slowly spread to more places and more people. Now, scholars still argue about one question. In the Tang Dynasty, was this method used by most people or only by a small group? Some think it was only used by a minority. Others believe it was already quite common in cities. But either way, this is the earliest form of toothbrushing in China that looks like a real tool. Everything changed in the Song Dynasty. The Song Dynasty finally saw the birth of what we can call a real toothbrush. It had a name, Shuya Zi, literally toothbrushing stick. In Song Dynasty lifestyle books, you can find notes like, these toothbrushes are made entirely with horsehair. In other words, the bristles were horsehair, and the handle was bamboo or horn. The whole thing was just over an inch long. If you hold one in your hand, it looks like the ancestor of our modern toothbrushes. Again, picture the morning scene. The market streets of a Song Dynasty city are still half asleep. Shopkeepers are just lifting their shutters. A scholar in wide sleeves walks into his courtyard, opens his washing box, and takes out a small toothbrush. The bristles are stiff and short. The handle is a piece of polished bamboo. He scoops a ladle of water, weights the bristles, and starts brushing very seriously. This is already very close to how we do it today, but horsehair toothbrushes had a problem. there were not enough horses. The Song dynasty had a shortage of horses, and horsetails were precious. So not every toothbrush could use horsehair. Some brushes used pig bristles instead. Imagine a shop in a southern Song city, rows of toothbrushes hanging on the wall. Some are made with horsehair, some with pig bristle. Some have long handles, some short, some are cheap, some are more expensive. People were already choosing toothbrushes back then. By late Song, especially in Hangzhou, there were even shops known as gentlemen's brushing stalls that specialized in selling toothbrushes. That tells you how common toothbrushing had become. On top of that, the Song people invented something called yaxiangjian. What was yaxiangjian? You can think of it as a combo of toothpaste plus brush head made in advance. They would mix aromatic substances and medicinal herbs into a paste, press it into thin sheets, and stick these sheets onto the toothbrush bristles. When you brushed, the fragrance would slowly dissolve. It cleaned your teeth and freshened your breath at the same time. After brushing, you rinsed your mouth. This was basically the ancient version of a light, herbal toothpaste. So, if you imagine a Song person brushing in the morning, on the little brush, there is a wafer of yaxiangjian. When the brush touches water and teeth, it does not foam the way our toothpaste does, but it gives off a gentle fragrance. After brushing, a faint scent remains in the mouth. At this point, you can see that toothbrushing habits in China were becoming more and more modern. What about Europe? In ancient Europe, there were also ways to clean teeth, but ordinary people's oral hygiene was usually not as carefully managed as in China. Only after the Chinese-style toothbrush reached Europe did European nobles start to treat toothbrushes as something fashionable and desirable. The problem was price. At first, toothbrushes were very expensive. Only the rich could afford them. Ordinary people still mostly did not use them. It was not until the 19th century, when nylon bristled toothbrushes appeared, that toothbrushes truly became a household item in the West. Sold back to China. You might ask, when people in ancient China brushed their teeth, did they use toothpaste? The answer is yes, but it was not like ours. They did not brush dry. They preferred to sprinkle homemade tooth powder on the brush. The ingredients were simple: powdered spices and herbs, mixed with salt. Some formulas also included traditional herbs like ginger, shangma, ramanya, and so on. These recipes cleaned away stains and also freshened the breath. If you imagine the taste of ancient tooth powder, it would not be minty and sweet. It would be more like herbal flavor plus a salty note plus a faint fragrance. And one more fun detail. Some people in old times were extremely particular about brushing. They had special tooth powders and tooth tools. When traveling, they carried them along. For them, toothbrush and tooth powder were part of a basic travel kit. After the Song, brushing teeth was basically woven into daily life in China. Toothbrushes became more refined. Tooth powders came in more varieties. People took clean teeth and fresh breath more and more seriously. Some writers even commented on this in their books or poems, using it as an example of how society was becoming more refined. At the same time, Chinese people always felt that your breath is part of your image. If your mouth is clean, you can speak with confidence. So, when you look at old Chinese paintings, especially portraits of beautiful women, why are their lips and teeth always drawn so clean and neat? Because phrases like teeth, like a row of shells, and clear and tidy lips and teeth were considered part of a person's charm and character. So you see, the idea that people in ancient times didn't brush their teeth and their mouths must have smelled horrible is really a misconception. From the Zhou dynasty onward, Chinese people cared about oral cleanliness. By the Temps, they had the tooth rubbing method. By the Song, they had real toothbrushes. You could say that China's history of toothbrushing started earlier than in many places. If you want to fix a picture in your mind, maybe it looks like this: early morning in a quiet courtyard. Bamboo shadows moving on white walls. The water jar reflects the pale sky. A woman in the Song dynasty, dressed in plain, elegant clothes, opens her washing box and takes out a small bamboo-handled toothbrush. The bristles are a little stiff. She dips them gently into scented toothpaste, then raises the brush to her mouth and cleans her teeth in small, careful strokes. Her husband is beside her, rinsing his mouth and brushing too. the family is getting ready to start their day. Or you might imagine a Tang Dynasty monastery at dawn. Monks stand in a row in the courtyard, each with a willow twig in hand. They chew open the ends, dip the brush heads into powder, and quietly rub their teeth. The temple is completely still. You can only hear the faint sound of water and the soft scratch of fibers on enamel. It is a small act of daily hygiene, and at the same time, part of their practice of purity. In this way, the question, did ancient Chinese people brush their teeth, stops being just a line in a book. It becomes a living, breathing picture in front of us. To sum it up, people in ancient China did brush their teeth, and they did it with a lot of care. Oral hygiene has been important in Chinese culture for thousands of years. From simple rinsing to the tooth-rubbing willow twig, 2 horsehair toothbrushes, 2 scented tooth sheets, and then out into the wider world. Step by step, those practices slowly evolved into the toothbrush and toothpaste we use so casually today.
Sky in light, Nua healed the broken heart. Fuxi traced the world's design. Every age leaves stories bright. Yaya dynasty shaped bronze. Shang dynasty cast leave stories bright. History and myth ignite in endless light. China's history moves in mystery through the night. Footsteps of this land enchant the world in light. Kingdoms dynasty turn war to tales. Jin dynasty led Ink and mountains bloom. Sui dynasty carved the Grand Canal. Tang dynasty crowned the world with art. Song dynasty raised learning's flame.